on July 10th, 2024, what began as a typical workday at a McDonald's restaurant in East Point, Michigan, ended in unimaginable tragedy. A workplace dispute between an employee and her manager escalated into a premeditated attack that would leave 6 children without their mother and expose disturbing warning signs that had been broadcast to thousands online just hours before the violence occurred. This is the story of Jennifer Harris, may her soul rest in peace, a dedicated manager and mother who lost her life while simply doing her job, and Afeni Badu Muhammad, the employee whose anger and frustration boiled over into an act of brutal violence that shocked a community and raised urgent questions about workplace safety, mental health awareness, and the warning signs we too often ignore. Jennifer Harris was 39 years old and had worked at the McDonald's location on 9 Mile Road in East Point, Michigan for years. She was known as a dedicated employee who had worked her way up to a management position. More importantly, she was a mother to 6 children who depended on her. On the other side of this tragedy was Afeni Badu Muhammad, a 26-year-old employee at the same McDonald's location. Muhammad worked at the restaurant while also taking on cleaning jobs through online booking platforms to make ends meet. But beneath the surface of someone trying to get by, there were troubling patterns of behavior that would soon become impossible to ignore. The events of July 10th, 2024 were not spontaneous. They were the culmination of workplace tensions, personal struggles, and a history of violence that the system had failed to adequately address. What happened that day inside the McDonald's would be captured on surveillance cameras, witnessed by multiple employees and customers, and documented through Muhammad's own disturbing social media posts made just hours before the attack. Jennifer Harris died from her injuries after being attacked at her workplace. Afeni Badu Muhammad was arrested at the scene and now faces charges of first-degree premeditated murder and carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent. Her bond has been set at $25 million. The warning signs for what would happen in East Point actually began more than 2 years earlier in Virginia. In March 2022, Afeni Badu Muhammad was involved in a domestic dispute with her boyfriend that turned violent. During an argument, Muhammad attacked her boyfriend with a knife. When police arrived at the scene, Muhammad's own words were telling. According to court records, she stated, "I stabbed him. Is he okay?" This wasn't a case of self-defense or accident. It was an acknowledgement of what she had done. Muhammad was charged and subsequently pleaded guilty to unlawful wounding without malicious intent. The court sentenced her to 4 years in prison. However, the entire sentence was suspended and Muhammad served only probation, no jail time. She was back in the community, and eventually, she would relocate to Michigan, where she would find employment at the McDonald's on 9 Mile Road in East Point. This prior conviction is crucial to understanding what happened next. It established a pattern of responding to conflict with violence. It showed that when Muhammad felt wronged or disrespected, she was capable of using a weapon against another person. And critically, it demonstrated that the consequences she faced were minimal, potentially reinforcing rather than deterring such behavior. By the summer of 2024, Muhammad had been working at the East Point McDonald's for some time. Jennifer Harris was her manager, and according to Muhammad's own social media posts and later court testimony, their working relationship had become strained. In the days leading up to July 10th, Muhammad began posting videos on her Instagram account where she had accumulated more than 24,000 followers under the handle Official Risen Phoenix. These videos provide a disturbing window into her state of mind and her growing anger toward Jennifer Harris. In these posts, Muhammad complained about being sent home early from work. She stated that Harris had sent her home early on consecutive days, which frustrated her because she needed the hours and the income. Muhammad characterized Harris as a bully who disrespected employees and talked down to them. In one video, wearing her McDonald's uniform hat, Muhammad vented her frustrations directly to her followers. She talked about Harris being a mother with children, but said that didn't give her the right to disrespect people or treat them as if they were beneath her. Muhammad described Harris as bringing negative energy into the workplace and accused her of panicking when things got busy, then trying to blame employees for problems. But it was the conclusion of these videos that, in hindsight, carried an ominous warning. Muhammad stated, "Somebody is going to have to do something about that." She added, "She could keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her." These weren't idle complaints. They were threats, broadcast publicly to thousands of people, and they were posted just days before Muhammad would act on those words. On the morning of July 10th, Muhammad reported for her scheduled shift at the McDonald's. According to testimony from coworkers, there was an interaction between Muhammad and Jennifer Harris that set the day's tragic events into motion. Employees testified that Harris sent Muhammad home early that day. The reason, according to management, was that Muhammad was not performing her assigned work duties. This wasn't about Harris being a bully or picking on an employee. It was a manager making a decision based on job performance. But Muhammad saw it differently. She viewed it as yet another instance of disrespect, another example of Harris wielding her authority unfairly, and this time her response would be deadly. According to witness testimony in court, Muhammad's reaction to being sent home was telling. Employee Kashana Turnage testified that Muhammad seemed very irritated. Turnage recalled Muhammad saying to Harris, "So you clocked me out without telling me. You reap what you sow. You better watch your back. I'll be back." Those final words, "I'll be back," were not an empty threat. They were a promise. After being sent home, Muhammad left the McDonald's. But she didn't go home to cool off. She didn't go to find another job or file a complaint with corporate headquarters. Instead, according to her own later statements to police, she drove to a nearby park. At that park, sitting alone with her thoughts, Muhammad made a decision. She would later tell investigators that while at the park, she decided she was going to return to the McDonald's and take Jennifer Harris's life. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision made in the immediate aftermath of being sent home. This was premeditation. This was planning. Muhammad had a knife in her vehicle. She retrieved it. She also took steps to conceal her identity, putting on a hooded sweatshirt and a mask to cover her face. These were deliberate actions taken by someone who understood what they were about to do and wanted to avoid immediate identification. Then she drove back to the McDonald's where Jennifer Harris was still working, completely unaware of what was coming. Surveillance video played during court proceedings captured what happened next. The footage shows Muhammad arriving back at the McDonald's location. She's wearing the hood and mask. The knife is concealed under her arm. Rather than entering through the front of the restaurant where customers would see her, Muhammad went to the back entrance, the employee entrance. This wasn't someone acting impulsively. This was someone executing a plan. Muhammad entered the restaurant through that back door. She walked through the kitchen area, past other employees, heading directly toward Jennifer Harris. What happened next was witnessed by multiple McDonald's employees who were working that day. Muhammad approached Harris and began attacking her with the knife. The assault was relentless and brutal. Prosecutors stated that Harris was struck at least 13 times, though some reports indicated the number could be as high as 23 wounds. Jennifer Harris tried to defend herself. She fought back. She tried to get away, but Muhammad continued the attack. Employees who witnessed the assault testified to the horror of what they saw. Their coworker, their manager, their friend was being attacked right in front of them, and it was happening so quickly that there was little they could do. Employee Deborah McMillian later testified about the final moments she spent with Jennifer Harris. McMillian described finding Harris on the floor in a pool of blood. According to McMillian's testimony, Harris's last words were heartbreaking and desperate. "Deb, please don't let me die." The attack might have continued even longer had it not been for the actions of a customer named Devontae Pace. Pace was in the drive-through line when he heard the commotion inside the restaurant. He could see what was happening through the windows. Pace was legally armed with a firearm. Faced with witnessing what he later described as a brutal attack, Pace made a split-second decision to intervene. He drew his weapon and fired a shot. In court testimony, Pace was asked about the shot he fired. He stated, "I guess it would be a warning shot because she didn't get hit, but it definitely was toward her, and I didn't mind shooting her. I was shooting at her." The gunshot had the intended effect. Muhammad stopped the attack. She froze momentarily, then made a decision to flee. She dropped the knife and ran from the restaurant, trying to escape before police could arrive. But Pace wasn't done. He pursued Muhammad, chasing her down in the parking lot. He held her at gunpoint, preventing her from leaving the scene until law enforcement officers could arrive and take her into custody. Pace's intervention likely saved additional lives that day. Had he not been there, had he not been armed, had he not chosen to get involved, the outcome could have been even worse. When East Point police officers arrived at the McDonald's, they found a chaotic scene. Jennifer Harris was on the floor, critically injured and bleeding. Muhammad was in the parking lot, detained by Devontae Pace, her clothing covered in blood. The knife used in the attack was recovered at the scene. Paramedics immediately began working on Jennifer Harris, rushing her to a local hospital for emergency treatment. Despite the best efforts of medical professionals, Harris died from her injuries. Muhammad was taken into custody without incident. During police questioning, she provided a full confession. Video of her interrogation was later played in court, and it revealed disturbing details about her mindset and her complete lack of remorse. In the interrogation video, Muhammad showed investigators exactly how she had attacked Harris, demonstrating the stabbing motion she had used. When asked about her feelings regarding what she had done, Muhammad's response was chilling. She stated, "I feel better." She told investigators that she had felt no remorse because, in her view, Harris had constantly bullied her at work. She admitted that after being sent home that morning, she drove to the park and made the decision to return and take Harris's life. She acknowledged putting on the hood and mask to conceal her identity. She confirmed retrieving the knife from her vehicle specifically for the purpose of carrying out the attack. This wasn't a case where investigators had to piece together what happened from fragmentary evidence. Muhammad told them everything. She confessed to premeditated murder. The East Point Police Department released a statement on their Facebook page describing the incident. The employee returned a short time later armed with a knife. The employee proceeded to stab the victim whom she had the prior dispute with. A customer who witnessed the assault fired a shot to stop the attack. No one was struck by the bullet. The suspect attempted to flee the scene, but was detained by the witness. East Point officers arrived a short time later and took the suspect into custody. The victim was rushed to a local hospital where she passed away from her wounds.
She was so good to everybody. A hard-working woman. So kind. If anybody needed help, she would give you her last. Give you the shirt off her back. She did not deserve that at all.
How many kids does your mom?
6. All 6 of us. Me and my
5 girls
siblings.
and 1 boy.
My brother.
And she's aware that she took us from her.
The day after Jennifer Harris's death, Afeni Badu Muhammad appeared in court for her arraignment. She was formally charged with first-degree premeditated murder and carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent. During the arraignment, Muhammad's defense attorney revealed some background information, attempting to provide context for her actions. The attorney stated that Muhammad had been in an extremely abusive relationship that involved both mental and physical harm, as well as alcohol issues. This was apparently a reference to the relationship that led to her 2022 stabbing conviction in Virginia. But prosecutors were quick to counter any suggestion that this background justified or excused what Muhammad had done. The assistant prosecutor for Macomb County revealed a crucial piece of information that many in the courtroom may not have known. Muhammad had a prior conviction for a similar offense. The prosecutor stated, "The defendant does have a prior instance of at least one that I'm aware that involved a stabbing, similar obviously to the stabbing that occurred in this case involving a knife." This revelation changed the calculus of the case. This wasn't someone who had made one terrible mistake in a moment of rage. This was someone with a documented history of using knives as weapons against people with whom she had conflicts. The judge set bond at $25 million, an extraordinarily high amount that reflected the severity of the charges and Muhammad's prior criminal history. Along with the bond came strict conditions. If Muhammad were somehow able to post bail, she would be required to wear a GPS monitoring device, remain in the state of Michigan, report any address changes within 24 hours, submit to daily check-ins with community corrections, undergo regular substance testing, have no contact with Jennifer Harris's family or any witnesses in the case, and stay away from the McDonald's location where the attack occurred. As of the latest court proceedings, Muhammad remains in custody at the Macomb County Jail, unable to post the $25 million bond. On July 23rd, Muhammad appeared in court for what was supposed to be a probable cause conference. This is typically a procedural hearing where bail conditions, plea negotiations, and other administrative matters are discussed. But when asked to state her name for the record, Muhammad made an unusual statement. She told the court, "I also go by Risen Phoenix." This was a reference to her Instagram handle, the account where she had posted the threatening videos about Jennifer Harris just days before the murder. During this hearing, Muhammad's defense attorney made a significant request. He asked the court to order a competency evaluation for his client. In Michigan, a competency evaluation is designed to determine whether a defendant understands the charges against them and can meaningfully participate in their own defense. The attorney cited both police reports and his own interactions with Muhammad as the basis for his concerns about her mental state. He told the judge that he needed to check two boxes. First, that Muhammad was competent to stand trial, and second, that there were no issues regarding her criminal responsibility or culpability at the time of the offense. Interestingly, Muhammad herself objected to the competency evaluation. She told the court that she did not want to be referred for mental health assessment. However, the judge overruled her objection and ordered the evaluation to proceed. This objection is notable because defendants attempting to use mental illness as a defense typically welcome such evaluations. Muhammad's resistance suggested she did not want to be perceived as mentally ill or unable to understand her situation. The competency evaluation process took several months. Forensic psychologists examined Muhammad, reviewed case materials, and prepared a detailed report on her mental state and capacity to stand trial. On September 17, 2024, the competency report was completed and submitted to the court. Both the defense and prosecution were given time to review the findings. On October 8, 2024, Muhammad returned to court to hear the results of the evaluation. The findings were clear. Both the defense and prosecution agreed that Afeni Badu Muhammad was competent to stand trial. This determination meant that Muhammad understood the nature of the charges against her, understood the roles of the judge, prosecutor, and defense attorney, and was capable of working with her legal team to mount a defense. She was mentally fit to proceed with the legal process. Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lutito released a statement following the competency determination. The finding ensures that she can now be held accountable through the proper legal process. The allegations describe a brutal act that has tragically ended the life of an innocent woman, and his office remains committed to seeking justice for the victim and her family. With the competency question resolved, the case could move forward toward trial. On November 14, 2025, Muhammad appeared in East Point District Court for her preliminary hearing. This hearing serves as a checkpoint in the criminal justice process where prosecutors must present enough evidence to establish probable cause that the defendant committed the crimes charged. The preliminary hearing proved to be emotionally charged and, ultimately, disrupted by a tragic incident involving Jennifer Harris's family. Prosecutors presented 6 witnesses who testified about what they had seen and experienced on July 10, 2024. The surveillance video from inside the McDonald's was played for the court, showing Muhammad entering the restaurant and carrying out the attack on Jennifer Harris. Before the video was shown, the judge recommended that family members leave the courtroom, warning them that the footage would be extremely disturbing and difficult to watch. However, each member of Jennifer Harris's family chose to remain. They wanted to see what had happened to their loved one. The video proved to be as difficult as the judge had warned. As the footage played, showing the attack in graphic detail, family members burst into tears. Some fell to the floor, overcome with grief. Others ran from the courtroom, unable to watch any longer. The judge called a recess to allow people time to compose themselves. But during that recess, something happened that added another layer of tragedy to an already heartbreaking case. According to police reports, one of Jennifer Harris's daughters, who was 17 years old at the time, left the courthouse during the recess. She went to her car in the parking lot. When she returned to the courthouse, she was carrying a knife. The teenager's intention appeared to be to confront Muhammad with the same type of weapon that had been used against her mother. However, police officers spotted the knife before she could enter the courtroom. Officers tackled the young woman and took her into custody. East Point Police Chief Corey Haynes later confirmed the incident. The daughter was released to her guardian, and a report was submitted to the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office for review to determine whether charges would be filed. Following this incident, the court made the decision to bar Jennifer Harris's family members from returning to the courthouse for the remainder of the preliminary hearing. This was done for safety reasons, but it meant that the family was unable to be present for the rest of the proceedings. When the hearing resumed, additional evidence was presented. The interrogation video of Muhammad was played, showing her confession and her demonstration of how she had carried out the attack. Witnesses testified about Muhammad's behavior before and after the incident. Employee Kashana Turnaj testified about the interaction she witnessed between Muhammad and Harris on the morning of July 10th, including Muhammad's statement, "You reap what you sow. You better watch your back. I'll be back." Devontae Pace, the armed customer who intervened, testified about what he saw and his decision to fire his weapon to stop the attack. He described chasing Muhammad down and holding her until police arrived. Employee Deborah McMillian provided heartbreaking testimony about Jennifer Harris's final moments, recounting Harris's plea, "Deb, please don't let me die." Based on the evidence presented, the judge found probable cause to believe that Afeni Badu Muhammad had committed the crimes charged. The case was bound over to Macomb County Circuit Court for trial. Muhammad is scheduled to be arraigned in Circuit Court on December 2nd, 2025, where she will enter a formal plea to the charges of first-degree premeditated murder and carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent. On November 14th, 2025, Muhammad appeared in East Point District Court for her preliminary hearing. This hearing serves as a checkpoint in the criminal justice process where prosecutors must present enough evidence to establish probable cause that the defendant committed the crimes charged. The preliminary hearing proved to be emotionally charged and, ultimately, disrupted by a tragic incident involving Jennifer Harris's family. Prosecutors presented 6 witnesses who testified about what they had seen and experienced on July 10th, 2024. The surveillance video from inside the McDonald's was played for the court, showing Muhammad entering the restaurant and carrying out the attack on Jennifer Harris. Before the video was shown, the judge recommended that family members leave the courtroom, warning them that the footage would be extremely disturbing and difficult to watch. However, each member of Jennifer Harris's family chose to remain. They wanted to see what had happened to their loved one. The video proved to be as difficult as the judge had warned. As the footage played, showing the attack in graphic detail, family members burst into tears. Some fell to the floor, overcome with grief. Others ran from the courtroom, unable to watch any longer. The judge called a recess to allow people time to compose themselves. But during that recess, something happened that added another layer of tragedy to an already heartbreaking case. According to police reports, one of Jennifer Harris's daughters, who was 17 years old at the time, left the courthouse during the recess. She went to her car in the parking lot. When she returned to the courthouse, she was carrying a knife. The teenager's intention appeared to be to confront Muhammad with the same type of weapon that had been used against her mother. However, police officers spotted the knife before she could enter the courtroom. Officers tackled the young woman and took her into custody. East Point Police Chief Corey Haynes later confirmed the incident. The daughter was released to her guardian, and a report was submitted to the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office for review to determine whether charges would be filed. Following this incident, the court made the decision to bar Jennifer Harris's family members from returning to the courthouse for the remainder of the preliminary hearing. This was done for safety reasons, but it meant that the family was unable to be present for the rest of the proceedings. When the hearing resumed, additional evidence was presented. The interrogation video of Muhammad was played, showing her confession and her demonstration of how she had carried out the attack. Witnesses testified about Muhammad's behavior before and after the incident. Employee Kashana Turnaj testified about the interaction she witnessed between Muhammad and Harris on the morning of July 10th, including Muhammad's statement, "You reap what you sow. You better watch your back. I'll be back." Devontae Pace, the armed customer who intervened, testified about what he saw and his decision to fire his weapon to stop the attack. He described chasing Muhammad down and holding her until police arrived. Employee Deborah McMillian provided heartbreaking testimony about Jennifer Harris's final moments, recounting Harris's plea, "Deb, please don't let me die." Based on the evidence presented, the judge found probable cause to believe that Afeni Badu Muhammad had committed the crimes charged. The case was bound over to Macomb County Circuit Court for trial. Muhammad is scheduled to be arraigned in Circuit Court on December 2nd, 2025, where she will enter a formal plea to the charges of first-degree premeditated murder and carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent. Afeni Badu Muhammad was 26 years old at the time of the attack. She had been working at the McDonald's while also taking cleaning jobs through online platforms to supplement her income. Muhammad's social media presence provides insight into her mindset and struggles. On Instagram, where she used the handle Official Risen Phoenix and had over 24,000 followers, she posted frequently about her life, her frustrations, and her conflicts with others. In the weeks and days before the attack on Jennifer Harris, Muhammad's posts showed a pattern of anger and inability to handle conflict or perceived disrespect. She posted videos complaining about her cleaning clients, expressing frustration when people's homes were messy or when she felt disrespected. She posted about conflicts with a roommate or former partner, using disturbing language about wanting to harm him. These posts, viewed in retrospect, show warning signs of someone struggling with anger management, impulse control, and potentially serious mental health issues. But at the time they were posted, they were largely ignored or treated as just another person venting online. Muhammad's prior conviction in Virginia for stabbing her boyfriend should have been a red flag. The fact that she received only probation for that offense meant there was no significant intervention to address the underlying issues that led to that violence. When she moved to Michigan and applied for a job at McDonald's, that prior conviction apparently did not prevent her from being hired. At her court appearances, Muhammad has presented a complicated picture. Her objection to the competency evaluation suggested someone who does not see herself as mentally ill. Her use of the name Risen Phoenix in court suggested someone who may see herself in a different light than others see her. Mental health professionals who evaluated Muhammad found her competent to stand trial, meaning she understands what is happening and can participate in her defense. But competency for trial is different from questions about her mental state at the time of the offense or her overall mental health needs. Devontae Pace was a customer in the McDonald's drive-thru on July 10th who became an unexpected hero. A legally armed citizen, Pace witnessed the attack on Jennifer Harris through the restaurant windows. Faced with a split-second decision, Pace chose to intervene. He drew his legally carried firearm and fired a shot toward Muhammad. While the shot did not strike Muhammad, it had the intended effect of stopping the attack. When Muhammad fled, Pace pursued her and held her at gunpoint in the parking lot until police arrived. His actions likely prevented further loss of life that day. In his court testimony, Pace was honest about his intentions. He acknowledged that while it could be characterized as a warning shot, he was actually shooting at Muhammad with the intent to stop the attack, even if that meant potentially striking her. Pace's intervention raises important questions about civilian intervention in violent situations, the role of legally carried firearms in public safety, and the split-second decisions ordinary people sometimes have to make when confronted with violence. The murder of Jennifer Harris sent shockwaves through the East Point community and garnered significant media attention, both locally and nationally. Local news outlets in Detroit, including WXYZ and CBS Detroit, covered the case extensively. The story had all the elements that draw media attention: workplace violence, social media warning signs, a prior criminal history that had been inadequately addressed, and the intervention of an armed citizen. But beyond the media coverage, the community response revealed deep feelings about what had happened and what it represented. Many people expressed frustration that Muhammad's prior stabbing conviction in Virginia had resulted in only probation. The perception was that the system had failed to protect the public by allowing someone with a documented history of knife violence to remain in the community without significant intervention or monitoring. Others focused on the social media aspect of the case. Muhammad had posted videos expressing anger and making what could be interpreted as threats against Jennifer Harris. Those videos had been viewed by thousands of people. Yet no one had intervened, no one had alerted authorities, no one had taken the warnings seriously enough to act. This raised uncomfortable questions about our collective responsibility when we see concerning behavior online. Do we have an obligation to report threats we see on social media? At what point does venting cross the line into credible threats? And what can or should be done when someone displays warning signs of potential violence? The reaction to Muhammad's claim of being bullied was mixed. Some people expressed sympathy for anyone who feels mistreated at work and acknowledge that workplace bullying is a real problem. However, most people drew a firm line between feeling disrespected at work and responding with lethal violence. The consensus was clear. Even if Jennifer Harris had been difficult to work with, which there is no evidence to support, that would not justify or excuse what Muhammad did. The broader conversation touched on issues of mental health, workplace culture, and violence prevention. Some argued that Muhammad clearly needed mental health intervention, and that the failure to provide such intervention after her first stabbing offense contributed to this tragedy. Others countered that mental illness, if present, does not excuse violence, and that personal accountability must remain central. Jennifer Harris's family has maintained dignity throughout this ordeal, even in the face of unimaginable grief. The incident at the preliminary hearing, where Harris's teenage daughter was arrested after retrieving a knife, illustrated the deep trauma and pain the family continues to experience. While the daughter's actions were understandable from an emotional standpoint, they also showed how cycles of violence can perpetuate themselves when trauma is not properly addressed. The community has rallied around Harris's 6 children. The GoFundMe campaign established in their mother's name has received donations from people who want to ensure that some good can come from this tragedy by supporting these children's futures. For the East Point community, this case has served as a reminder of how quickly everyday situations can turn deadly, how important it is to take warning signs seriously, and how the consequences of violence ripple outward to affect families, coworkers, and entire communities. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share, and feel free to leave a comment. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.